Coming up next on All About Android, it's me, Jason Howell, my co-hosts Ron Richards and Win Twit Dow, and let's see if you can connect the dots between Cross-device SDK, Android Automotive, and Google Play games for Windows PCs. See if you watch the show, you can connect those dots. Actually, we connect those dots for you, but that's okay. You can still play along. Also, I review the Pixel 6a that I've been using for the last couple of weeks. Twitter is bringing back Google Plus Circles, if you can believe it. Logitech has a portable gaming device running Android. That's in the works, although it was leaked a little bit, so we know a little bit more about that. Plus your feedback and a whole lot more next on All About Android.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is All About Android, episode 593, recorded Tuesday, August 30th, 2022. Twitter's Circle is open. This episode of All About Android is brought to you by Secureworks. Are you ready for inevitable cyber threats? Secureworks detects evolving adversaries and defends against them with a combination of security analytics and threat intelligence direct from their own counter-threat unit. Visit secureworks.com/twit to get a free trial of Taegis Extended Detection and Response, also referenced as XDR. And by Bitwarden. Get the password manager that offers a robust and cost-effective solution that can drastically increase your chances of staying safe online. Get started with a free trial of a Teams or Enterprise plan, or get started for free across all devices as an individual user at bitwarden.com/twit. Hello and welcome to All About Android. This is the show that is your source for the latest news, hardware, and apps for the Android faithful. I'm Jason Howell.
And I'm Ron Richards.
And I'm Win Twit Dow.
Oh, man. We do things at the top of this show differently now than we've done it for literally the entire time that we've done this show. How many years? 11, 12, somewhere around
11
there.
years, yeah.
It is hard breaking something that you're so used to doing for 12 years. It's really difficult.
Very difficult.
But change is hard. But I'm happy with change because that means that I'm back here and I was away last week and that was kind of a change, but you guys did awesome. So thank you so much for filling in for me. Appreciate it.
We missed you. I'll be honest. I mean, I had a blast and I think we did a great job on the show. It was fun. It was a good conversation, but Jason, you were missed. So.
Yes, you were. Be the adult in the room.
I'm happy to be the adult. But I don't think you actually need an adult. We're all good. We're all good here. It is good to be back. And we've got a lot of news to talk about this week. So why don't we just jump right in? Burke, I don't know if you have a button to press, but if so, I think it's time to press it.
Well, I do have a button, but man, I can't tell you how long I tried to figure out an Android news bumper this week.
I can't tell you how long I tried to figure out how to press that button. My finger was like all around it, but it wasn't quite pressing it. I don't know.
Well, speaking and pressing the button is
I know
issue.
It's hard. It's a challenge. I hear you. All right, Win, you've got the top one, and yes, I'm sorry, you got the most developer focused story, but that's great. Tell us why this, like what we can look forward to here between devices, because it sounds cool, but I feel like I need a little bit of like a better understanding as far as like what this means for users and developers.
Yeah, so there's actually pretty interesting news for developers in that on Friday, August 26th, Google announced the first developer preview of the new Cross-device SDK for Android. So what is this? It probably has to do with multiple devices and crossing their streams. So this was first kind of announced and talked about by Google at Google I/O for, quote, multi-device development. So as Google consumers and the Android faithful, many of us already have like multiple smart devices and have had them for many years now, right? So we have like our Google TVs, our smartphones, our smart displays, all our watches and everything. So as smart all things Google, as we like our ecosystem, and Google is trying to make this ecosystem more connected and more seamless, especially because, we like, as smart devices have become more ubiquitous, both generally, like everyone has them, and within the same house, you probably have multiple of them, especially if you're an Android faithful. Yeah. Google's trying to let developers take better advantage of this by allowing devices within the same household and really within the same close proximity to work together to do things better, and also to make it easier for developers to make interesting experiences without having to do a lot of nitty gritty. So the cross-device API is really interesting because it covers a lot of the cases that Google is citing that developers could use this for. Kind of covers a lot of things that we already have. So from anything from discovering and pairing headphones or fitness trackers, which we already do via Bluetooth, the basic idea of streaming any media at all to your various media-enabled devices, TVs, sound systems, speakers, and smart displays, to even the idea of media playback being seamlessly, changed from one specific output to another. So going from, your phone to maybe speakers you have in your kitchen to wherever. So those are kind of things that we already have, right? And this is something that the cross-device API can do. But on top of that, cross-device API is also meant to do things that have to do with sharing data and state between devices. So maybe you say log into your favorite streaming service on your phone, because a lot of times it's easier on your phone, and then being able to say buy or rent a movie on your phone, but then have it seamlessly start on your TV without having to re-log in, or even do like an abbreviated like pairing or something like that. Or even something as simple as reading an article on your phone and having Google or someone remember the position of it, and then moving over to your tablet to read the same thing without having to reload it and scroll to the same spot. So sharing data. And on top of that, cross-device also wants to help you with kind of sharing between different users in the same proximity. So say doing a food order, and rather than having one person's phone be like passed around, which is not hygienic and also, just kind of less convenient, letting everyone
not 2022 to pass a phone
not 2022.
around at a table. Yeah.
It is not. Yeah. Especially if, with germs and everything, it's probably not convenient. Also, in case, you have a wallpaper you don't want people to see or things like that, you can now with cross-device possibly do a food order where everyone gets to use their own phone to contribute to the same food order or grocery cart, whatever. And even something like, say, you're driving in a car with someone and you're going somewhere and you know where you're going and the driver does not, being able to seamlessly share, maybe driving directions or a map location to the driver. Or maybe you're hiking with some folks and you are the person with the trail map or the route. You can seamlessly share it to everyone in your group so that no one gets lost and everyone knows where they're going. So a lot of that stuff we already have, right? Yeah. We already have group bumpers. We already have like location sharing, but it's not always easy. So
not always easy for the user or for the developer to integrate that, because I think that was kind of part of my confusion as I was reading this, and I was like, well, wait a minute, I feel like we kind of have some of this stuff, but I guess the point of an SDK is to take these things that may have been possible before but not quite as easy to implement, or buttoning it up in a way that's understandable and what is the word that I'm looking for, like it's consistent every time between all these different use cases.
Exactly. And a lot of this, we have to do it on our own. So like say something like a shared like food order cart, usually that might be say some kind of remote session that the developer has like some kind of like session object where you can have people log in and you have to log into your own account, and then everyone has to like share a link maybe, which while we're kind of used to sharing links for things, it works and it's actually pretty simple, but it's still, okay, I have to grab a link, I have to copy paste it into a message and share it to people. It definitely works and there's ways of doing it, but it's less seamless. It's less integrated with maybe the app, the app that you're already using. And for developers, a lot of times we had to do a lot of stuff on our own. It's almost like reinventing the wheel every time. It's like, okay, how do I get this device that's running my app to talk to this device via Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or whatever? And how do I create like a shared session for a group order or even a game or anything that people want to like share some kind of common information or some kind of data? A lot of times devs have to do that all on their own. And on top of that is like Bluetooth kind of sucks as a protocol. Wi-Fi is interesting at times. So there's a lot of stuff that devs have to do to make this work. And half the time we spend effort on making Bluetooth work, or at least fixing Bluetooth when it breaks, which is very often. It's kind of a miracle that it works, period. And even, setting up with some of this infrastructure that allows for these shared experiences. So Cross-device API's point is to basically make all that easier and make it more or less agnostic to both the developers and the users. So regardless of whether it's like Bluetooth or ultra wideband or Wi-Fi or whatever, the developers can now delegate several kind of core functionalities that Cross-device API is providing, like device discovery, doing secure connections between different devices, and as well as multi-device sessions, kind of more in the vein of like your same account across multiple devices, and taking care of all the hard details, and then just allowing the developers to focus on the actual experience in doing things. And that's kind of a boon. So there is an element of the user can probably see some of this, because things like multi-device sessions where you're seamlessly going, from your phone to your TV kind of requires some Google Play Services account magic. And at the same time, me as a developer, especially me, because I don't know much about Bluetooth. You don't want me working on your Bluetooth APIs and stuff like that. Me as a developer having to worry about Bluetooth and getting permissions and doing all this handshaking and stuff is time taken away from actually providing you a good service. So that's why this is really cool. And that's why it seems like this is kind of reinventing certain things that we already have, but hopefully it'll make it easier and it'll make it more, secure, more consistent, and more maintainable for your devs. So hopefully you'll get more of these things, but better. So that's why you should be excited. I'm excited as a dev. There are a couple of provisos. This is actually built on top of Nearby Share, by the way. So if a lot of this seems familiar, it is because it requires Nearby Share to be on. And it is a Google Play Services thing. So this is a proprietary Google thing, and which kind of makes sense because it's using some of the authentication stuff. So
right.
For users and for developers, hopefully this is kind of the beginning of kind of more integrated experiences and things like that. So I don't know. There's a lot of things that you could probably do with this. I was kind of thinking of my own cross-device thing, and I was kind of getting really nerdy with it. I was thinking, would it be cool if you had a Dungeons and Dragons app where you had like the Dungeon Master, and they could share like treasure chests and like different like events that happen by just tapping phones or something like that, right?
That would be neat.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
But even just
tablets,
like the food ordering thing.
tablets.
Yeah. And tapping tablets, right? And sharing data. And even I like the trail thing, the idea of like going on a hike, and then rather than everyone like getting a link and pulling up the map, you can all kind of be synced with map locations. So I don't know. I think it's really cool. If there's any kind of cross-device ideas that y'all might have, kind of listening to that, or things that you think might be better.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to come up with something off the top of my head, but I'm happy that you explained it like that, because that was what I was thinking as I was reading it through. Like I said, I was like, oh, wait a minute, we kind of have this, but it makes sense to alleviate for the developer the need to reinvent that wheel every time. And Google does this. I mean, this is nothing new. This is what Google does all the time. Oh, this is being used in a certain way. Let's, they did this recently with foldables, the last couple of years. All these different methods are being, utilized in order to do these things with this new form factor. Let's bring it in-house so that we can really unify it and make it easier so that people creating for these devices don't have to, come up with their own way to solve these problems, and that frees them up to create better apps in the end, or better experiences. So, yeah, that's great. And maybe it'll get us to use, or maybe I'm speaking for myself, get me to use Nearby Share more than I do, because I really don't use it very much, which is not to say that it's not cool. I really like it a lot. I just don't find, I don't find myself turning to it,
Yeah, it's you need to have the almost magical application moment of how this is putting Nearby Share to use, basically.
Yeah.
To create experiences like, when what you just said about, about D&D, or, other kind of like, imagine what you could do if people had devices all around you. Gaming comes to mind, but so does, so does somewhat productivity, or like, bill splitting, like that sort of thing. Like,
oh my gosh.
I feel like that's definitely an area where everyone's got their phones and, this sort of thing. So it just,
oh man, could you imagine you're at a table and there's four of you, and it's like, okay, so the bill is here. Everybody like taps their phones together, and it can, I don't know if it'll do
that.
Yeah,
it just splits it. Yeah.
It's like the Voltron of bill paying.
Yeah, right.
Everybody comes together to pay the bill. But yeah, so I mean, so it's just like Nearby Share is the underlying tech that it can do on, but this SDK can extend it to this idea of like devices together, in a common place. It could be pretty cool.
Nice.
So, yeah.
All right. So something to get excited about. That's really cool. Look forward to seeing what that turns into. Also looking forward to Android 14. Yeah, that's right. I said it. Android 13 just came out, but now we're already talking about Android 14. And basically, it's time to get ready for the next beta because this beta train never slows down. So the Android 13 QPR one, that's the quarterly platform release beta, begins next month. So it's like Android 13 official has happened. If you are still enrolled in the beta program, you'll get that next beta automatically when that becomes available in September. I think if you don't want to get that beta, you can get out now and be on the stable and not have to wipe your device. But I think my understanding is once you start that beta track for the next version of Android 13 QPR1 beta, then if you want to go back to stable, I think you have to wipe your device. I believe that's how that goes. So, keep that in mind. Decide now whether you want to stay on the train or hop off at the stop. Google shortened this to run through March 2023. It was originally going to go through June 2023. But the reason they did this is to prevent that really confusing overlap. If you remember, in the past year, there was that time at the beginning of this year, I think it was, where it was like you still had like these residual betas overlapping each other. I was like, which one do I need to be on, and which is, what's happening? And I think this time they're shortening things so that there isn't as much overlap as far as that's concerned. So, and then of course Android 14 betas likely starting in April. With the developer previews actually starting sometime around February, probably. I don't know if that's confirmed, but anyways, that's our beta calendar.
Here's the thing. Android 13 just came out. Can we slow down with the 14
No, we
beta
can't.
calendar,
What's next?
Please?
No. What's next, man? It's always about what's on the horizon.
It's still so new that there's like not even an Android 14 section in 9to5 Google.
Yes, I was just looking today, and it's like no data. That's exactly right. Like, and but the train metaphor is so great because I think we talked a little bit about how once you're on the train and once it's moving, you can get off at the next station, which is like the next like beta version, the next QPR. Yeah. But if you want to get off the train in the middle, you basically have to jump off the train and, eat dirt, or in this case, get your phone wiped. So the train analogy is perfect for this because basically once the train's moving, you got to stay on or else you're jumping off a train at full speed. So
once you're
good
at that
luck
next
with that.
stop, it's too late. Yeah.
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 So very apt.
Ride that train. You might throw up. You might get sick.
Jesus.
I'm just saying, it might crash your phone, and you have to.
It might.
How far do we have to want to go down this analogy?
Not far at all.
All right, phone will have
turn the train around.
So, a couple of bits of news around Android Auto. Android Automotive 13 is here. Everybody,
yay!
Hooray.
Yay.
Hooray.
I thought there'd be some sort of fanfare maybe, but I guess not. Thank you, Burke. Thank you. And it includes some projection support improvements. Mishal Rahman has unearthed a connectivity app that takes advantage of those improvements called Android Auto Receiver. It's meant to project Android Auto from a connected phone to an Android Automotive head unit. And so you're probably wondering, why would that be useful? So imagine if you're renting a car and you want your phone's information on the head unit inside the car. This is how it could happen. It's almost like Chromecast for the car. Android Auto. That's what it reminds me of. Yeah. So I feel like projecting is the wrong word for I feel like casting might be. Anyway, but so this app would project Android Auto from your phone to the head unit, which is a pretty neat kind of way of like, if it's got an Android Auto head unit, I've got Android Auto on the phone, why can't they talk? Clearly there it is. And Michelle found some other improvements within there. Support for ultra wideband. Bluetooth has become a project mainline module for low friction updates, a privacy dashboard support, and a whole host of other updates. So it's pretty cool to see all these kind of updates happening for Android Automotive. But real quickly, before we discuss, just to follow up from last week, we talked about the reports of Android Auto 7.8 causing lots of problems for nearly everybody. After the show, actually, someone from Google's support team confirmed on that support forum that we referenced last week that a fix has been rolling out and would fix those problems about the refusal to connect. The fix started rolling out on August 25th and is rolling out slowly, but it should be fully in place by September 1st. So if anybody was having that problem with Android Auto 7.8 and you haven't got the fix yet, you should have it hopefully in the next 2 days if you haven't had it already. So Android Auto activity, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think the thing that I just kind of connected the dots on a little bit was that support for ultra wideband. And, touching on what you were talking about just a few stories ago, Wen, and kind of the many devices and the many different ways that something could connect those devices to share data between, and UWB was one of those. And so, that's a building block for that cross-device SDK kind of implementation working with Android Automotive.
Yeah, multi-device session. So that is multi-device, your phone and the display. So that makes a lot of sense. All the integrations and seamlessness.
Yeah.
Like it.
Good. I can't remember. Do either of you have Android Auto, right, Ron? Do you have it?
I don't have a head unit. I've got a Subaru that has Android Auto as an app on its Starlink system, so I can, when I plug in my phone and choose Android Auto, it loads up, but it's not the sole head unit.
Oh,
OS.
that's
same
right.
exact same Z's. I also have a Subaru with the exact same setup. So.
Yeah. I still get very confused between Android Auto and Automotive, and the Android Automotive that is the full, car UI controls versus just the media. It gets so confusing.
Naming.
And I know I'm not alone. All right, so let's take a break. We'll thank the sponsor of this episode, and then we will get into some hardware. I actually happen to have right here the Pixel 6a. And I've been using it for a couple of weeks, and I have some thoughts. So I'm going to give you my thoughts on that up next.
I can't wait to hear those thoughts, Jason.
Yeah. But first, this episode of All About Android is brought to you by Secureworks. Secureworks is a leader in cybersecurity, building solutions for security experts by security experts. Secureworks offers superior threat detection and rapid incident response, all while making sure that customers are never locked into a single vendor. Secureworks offers an open extended detection and response platform that's Tejas XDR. And you might ask, why is that? Well, in 2022, cybercrime will cost the world $7 trillion. Trillion. But by 2025, that figure is going to increase to $10.5 trillion. That's insane. In 2021, ransomware totaled $20 billion in damages, and attacks occurred every 11 seconds. But check this out. By 2031, ransomware is projected to cost $265 billion per year, right? And strike every 2 seconds. Stuff isn't going away, folks. How do you make sure your organization is not the next victim? The answer is Secureworks Tejas XDR. Secureworks Tejas provides superior detection, identifies over 470 billion security events per day. It's also prioritizing the true positive alerts, eliminating alert noise, and allowing organizations to focus on the real threat. And in addition to all that, Tejas offers unmatched response with automated response actions to eliminate threats before damage is ever done. So whether your organization has a limited IT staff and budget, or maybe you run a well-funded, fully staffed security operations center, you're going to receive customized support. With Secureworks Tejas Managed XDR, you can easily leverage Secureworks experts to investigate and respond to threats on your behalf so that you can actually cut dwell time, decrease your operational burden, and reduce the cost. And with 24/7 by 365 coverage, whether you experience a Christmas Day security event, I hope you don't, but you might, or half your team is out sick, you can trust that Secureworks is behind you. Many companies, as we know, are facing a shortage of security talent, right? Hiring and retention is harder than ever. Secureworks customizes the approach and the coverage level you get in order to give you exactly what you need. Bottom line of all this, Secureworks acts as an extension of your security team on day one, and that's going to alleviate cybersecurity talent gaps. So what happens if you've already found an intruder in your system? Well, you don't need to worry. You want to write this number down, scratch this down on a piece of paper, 1-800-BREACHED. That's 1-800-BREACHED. That number will actually connect you with the Secureworks Emergency Incident Response Team, and then they can provide you with immediate assistance 24/7 in responding to and then also remediating a possible cyber incident or a data breach. At Secureworks, you can learn more about the ways today's threat environment is evolving and the risks it can present to your organization, including case studies, reports from their counter threat unit, and a whole lot more. Visit secureworks.com/twit. You'll get a free trial of Taegis XDR when you do that. That's secureworks.com/twit. Secureworks, defending every corner of cyberspace. Keep yourself secured. Check it out for yourself, and we thank Secureworks for their support of All About Android. All right, time to do some phone reviewing in hardware. Let's get to it.
Now, Jason, I'm very excited to hear this review because, as you and the listeners know, I'm excited because the Pixel 6a is going to be my sister's next phone. And I actually saw her yesterday, and I said when she took out her phone to take a picture, and it was still her old, I think she's on a 4A maybe or 3A.
Okay.
And I was like, why haven't you gotten the new phone? And she's like, oh, I can't even think about it. School starting. She's a teacher. She's like, it's too stressful to have to copy everything over. And I was just like, oh no, everything's better now. Like, please believe. So this weekend, I'm hopefully going to convert her over to 6A, but I got to find out I got to hear what you think of the phone before I do that. So.
Yeah. So I've been using the 6A for a couple of weeks, taking it on a couple of trips, taking a lot of photos. You know, I mean, the A series Pixel phones continue to be a really solid category of devices, especially for the mid-range price category that they're in. This is a $449 device. And actually, I should just say right off the top, right now it's on sale. If you go to Amazon, you can get this for $370. So
that's awesome.
So I mean, normally $449, $370 now. Like, that's a ridiculous price reduction. So if you're going to get one of these, at least at the time of this recording, that's what it was earlier today. That's a pretty rockin' price for this phone. So I feel like the A series, time and time again, has just become a model of phone that is almost a no-brainer to recommend. And this year, I feel like is no different, minus a couple of quibbles that I have. I'll get to that in a moment. But I'll just kind of, I've been doing this format the last few reviews that I've done, and I kind of like it. It's kind of straight and to the point, so I'm just going to do it. The good, the indifferent, and the bad. So we'll start with the good. Everything that you already know about the 6 series, you get here with the 6A. But you do get a shallower, camera bump. And that actually is nice, even though I'm using Google's case, which kind of makes it a flat, seamless kind of backside, right? It doesn't pop out to begin with very much. Definitely not as much as it does on the Pixel 6 XL. But the design is solid. If not, I feel like a little better with the shallower camera bar, even though I know that on my 6 XL, and I think Bert just brought over is this your 6 XL? This is the 6. Here, I'm going to pop it out of the case just so we can do some side-by-side. Woo, the dirty. I'm not judging. Mine would be too. But you can really see side by side, right? Like the camera bar is a little narrower. If you put them up side by side like this, you can see that Berk's 6 pops out a lot further. I think the 6 XL maybe even a little bit further than that. This one doesn't sit flush, but it's pretty darn close. I mean, by comparison, it's very close. And I don't know. I just think it's less of that kind of strange awkwardness. You know what I mean? It just feels like a little bit more like a flat bar, even though it's not. But I love that. I think that's great. 6.1 inch display. which for me is refreshing over the 6.7 inch display on the 6 Pro that I've been using. I actually really like this size. I've so, wobble back and forth between the larger phone and the smaller phone these days. It's hard for me to pick which is the right one. I think the right one for me is whatever one I happen to be using and get used to. But I've gotten really comfortable with the 6.1 inch size of this display. The OLED display, especially in this price category, no surprise. It's bright, it's sharp. Everything looks good on this display as I've been using it. Things feel smooth and fluid. Inside, I think one of the big takeaways here that we know about the 6A is that this has Google's Tensor chip. So it has the same chip that Burke's 6 has. It has the same chip as my 6A, my 6 XL has. There's nothing different as far as that chip is concerned. It's not a ramped down version of it. So as a result, things feel, pretty smooth, pretty fluid. And I don't know, I didn't experience any slowdown. It really felt the same, as using my 6XL. The cameras, so I did include some photo samples. You can hop through those at random. I would just say that the camera system on the 6A performs incredibly well. You get your low light performance that's awesome and off the charts. If you're in bright light, you get nice, sharp, clear pictures. I really didn't battle any images at all. It was I've grown over the years to be really accustomed to knowing that when I pull out my Pixel and take a picture, it's going, 95% of the time is going to give me an image that's exactly what I'm looking for. And I think I've just kind of gotten comfortable and used to the Pixel images and everything. That was really dark out that night. We were sitting in front of a bonfire, which you can see right there, but that's like the quality of low light images that you get out of that camera, which is pretty spectacular. So yeah, I think the camera system, once again, you bang for your buck as far as that's concerned. They look great. You get IP67 weatherproofing, and then like I already said, the price is definitely one of the biggest benefits of the 6A. Now, what am I indifferent on? Well, I would say that the material is definitely a little bit of a lesser material. Like if you're used to having the glass on the back of the 6 and the 6 Pro, this is, what do they call it? A thermoformed composite, which is essentially, kind of a plastic, but it's kind of one of those things that like you don't even really notice it. Like I don't even notice it at all. I actually had to look it up because I was like, well, is this glass or is it plastic? Like I actually had to question it. For me, it also doesn't matter because I wear a case, right? So I'm kind of indifferent on that. If that's a deal breaker for you, but you're still going to put it in a case, does it really matter? Like, it probably doesn't. So there's that. And also it has the added benefit of kind of cutting down on the weight as well. This is a pretty light phone. In fact, my daughter picked this up not knowing that I was testing out a different phone. She was like, wow, your phone got really light. I was like, yeah, this isn't my phone. This is a different one. And then of course the in-display fingerprint sensor, which is, a lot of people don't like it, think that it's not as responsive as others. I mean, I don't know if I'm just used to it or if it just truly is not, nearly as bad as other people say. I don't have a problem with it. I don't think it's amazing. I've used better, fingerprint sensors in the display than on this one, but I feel like it's pretty dependable for me. And then there's the bad, and I put this in my notes in all caps. It's one of the only things that's all caps for me. That is the battery. I don't know what's going on as far as the battery is concerned with the 6A, but because I've gotten to the point to where I don't have battery anxiety much anymore because the batteries just, they at least with the 6XL and the other phones that I've been testing recently, like I never get anywhere below, like 40% by the end of the day or something. On this phone, almost every day that I've been using it, and quite frankly, even on days that I'm hardly using it, I feel like that battery drain is just insane. Like I get to 7 o'clock and it's at, 15% and I've got the little red indicator up there. I'm like, what the, like I didn't do anything extra to get here. Why is it depleting so fast? I don't know. I did do some reading around to see if other people encounter this, and not all other reviews reported on battery performance, but some of them did. So I don't know, maybe it's the combination of apps that I have installed doing something, but I find it kind of weird. It's the same apps that I have installed on, every other phone that I review. So very interesting there. Hopefully that gets buttoned up. Maybe there's some, tweaking, customization stuff that can be done to improve that. But I feel like that's my main kind of quibble with the 6A and my experience with it. Other than that, the things that it doesn't have, right? Which it's hard to like hold it accountable for not having a headphone jack, although the other A series phones have had one, so that might bum you out. Not having wireless charging, but again, it's a mid-range device and they got to cut costs. And I feel like wireless charging is a total like target, for cost cutting. So I don't really hold it against that. I think overall, this is yet again a really solid mid-range device from Google. It's really hard to beat at $449 and especially at $370, which you can get right now. Fantastic phone. So how do you feel about the decision now, Ron? For your sister,
you had me until the battery part. That's the only thing that worries me, because she needs a good battery that she doesn't have to worry about.
Yeah.
I feel like the Pixel A series, 4A, 5, not the 5A, but the 4A and the 3A were solid in terms of like camera and usage, and it was a good solid phone and had confidence in recommending it. And the 6A sounds like it's on the right track too there until you got to that bit about the battery. So. Yeah,
and it could just be me. Like, I don't know. It's really hard. That's why I said, like, I looked at other reviews to see, like, am I out on on my own here? And there were some reviews that did like serious, battery testing, like. What is the word I'm looking for? Very organized battery testing, which I admittedly do not do very organized battery testing. The way I review phones is I turn it into my phone and I use it for a couple of weeks and I see how I feel about it. It's very much a feeling sort of thing for me, as opposed to benchmarks and stats and all that kind of stuff. And, and so other reviewers have done those things and have found the battery to be less performant. I also saw a story today that said that Android 13 is rolling out on a number of Pixel devices and Pixel 6 devices, and they're seeing suddenly dramatic battery decrease happening, like, kind of similar to what I'm talking about. That doesn't apply here, though, because this is still on Android 12. It's not part of the beta. It's running the stock kind of Android 12 OS experience that I received it from Google. Google did give me this as a loaner device. So I got, it's running the way Google intended. And I don't know. It's it's a little disappointing because I haven't had that experience where every single night at like 7 o'clock I'm seeing that red icon up in the battery area. I'm like, I gotta charge that in.
That's stressful.
Plug that in. There have been mornings where I unplug it and I'm just doing my thing. I'm hardly on it, whatever. In a couple hours, it's like I wake up at 6. Like at 9 o'clock, I look at it and it's like 75%. I'm like, wait a minute, 75% in 3 hours. 25% in 3 hours and I did nothing. Like how is that possible? And the only way that I know that that's not normal for me is because I have had other phones and they definitely don't discharge at that rate. So I don't know, maybe it's my combination of apps, but maybe it is the 6A, something to know about, and consider going in. So
that's, Now I'm worried. Now I don't know if I can recommend it because now I'm kind of leaning, and we talked about this. I feel like we talked about it recently on the show when we were talking about mid-ranges and stuff. The price differential between it and a 6 isn't that far anymore.
Yeah, that's true. Well, what is a Pixel 6?
The 6 is like $599, isn't it? Or like 600 around there?
Yeah, probably somewhere around there. Which Pixel 6 on sale at Best Buy right now, $499.
If a Pixel 6 on sale for $499, right? Doesn't that seem a little off to you, right? And all these Pixel 6 prices are coming down because the Pixel 7 is on the horizon, right? So this might be the time to pull the trigger on the Pixel 6.
Right. Well, actually, and I'm seeing Amazon $469 for a Pixel 6.
Oh man, geez.
So that's pretty low.
Tempting.
Yeah. So then, I mean, and so 460. Okay. All right. So 469 for the Pixel 6, which is like what, $10 more than the normal price for the 6A, which is now admittedly on sale for much less as well. But then I guess this is the question for you and your sister is like, oh, well, maybe she gets the 6 because right now it's practically the same cost as the 6A.
Right. The only X factor here is she's on Verizon, which I know they get weird with. Like I'm on T-Mobile and I don't mind buying an unlocked phone and using that, but like she like goes to the Verizon store, gets the service, like all that kind of crap. And so I don't know if Verizon is selling the 6 for such a low price as well. I have to look into that.
It doesn't look that it is. Like I'm just briefly searching. It looks like $7.99 at Verizon.
Yeah.
So,
Which I mean, the unlocked phones work on Verizon. It's just that, but you know, again, like this is the difference between the regular customer and us, you know? So
yeah.
Indeed.
I could just buy her a 6.
Or that. So there you go. That's my look at the 6A. I think it's a really great device. It's just that battery, for whatever reason, I'm stuck on that one. So I don't know what that means ultimately. I would review it recommend it wholeheartedly outside of that, but that's a pretty big one. You know, battery really impedes. If bad battery performance really impedes on your use and enjoyment of a phone. So there you go.
All right. Well, moving on from phones, this is interesting. Logitech, who makes my mouse, which is having clicking problems, they've got a new gaming handheld on the horizon, which was confirmed by Logitech this month. And for those of you looking on the internet, you found out that it just leaked. Leaked images, thanks to Evan Glass, showed the Google Play Store, Xbox Cloud Gaming, and NVIDIA GeForce Now icons, among others like Steam and Chrome, etc. The device itself looks very Switch, Steam Deck type control handheld with the control buttons that you would expect on the sides. Looks very neat. In response to this leak, Logitech quickly filed a DMCA complaint and got the leaked images removed from Twitter, which pretty much validates that there's some legitimacy to those. And Logitech plans to release the device later this year. So if you're into gaming and you're into, I mean, I will give Logitech credit for being a legacy company that's been around forever. I mean, I remember buying Logitech mouses and keyboards back in the early 90s, right, with my PC days. Logitech is a reputable brand as far as I'm concerned, and so it's interesting to see them getting into the gaming handheld side of things versus the other, kind of keyboard mouse accessories. They also make my camera that I'm using, the webcam right now on the show right now. I'm surrounded by Logitech.
This actually fits in really great with a story that we're going to talk about after the next ad break. And I love it because, number one, I am also a longtime Logitech fan. I find their hardware very solid, and they obviously have a strong presence in the gaming sphere. And so, yeah, we have like the Switch, which, the Nintendo Switch, and then we have the Steam Deck, which is a Linux-based, Steam-centric device. And then you have here Logitech going with, presumably, if the rumors are true, no, don't DMCA me, with Android apps. So it's really interesting because it kind of, like just on the surface, it seems like they're just kind of going after the same, like kind of handheld, casual to, less casual gamer. But the fact that it is running Android apps is really, really interesting. And I think actually not a bad way to go about it. Wait till after the ad break for more information on that story. But yeah, I just think it's a really, really neat niche, and I would actually be interested in picking one of these up if it's real. Don't DMCA me.
Yeah, there are these devices that are built to be this, and then there is turning your phone into this with those case, I'm trying to remember. There's one that I reviewed a few years ago that was pretty awesome. It kind of like extended out and snapped around the phone. I'm totally blanking on the name of it.
Like a dock controller thing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And it had like a little USB-C port, and basically at the end of the day, you end up with the same thing that you're looking at here. But there might be something to just having a device that's what it's dedicated use is. There it is. Thank you, cousin of John in IRC. The Razer Kishi. My brain isn't working 100%.
Razer Kishi.
Today.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Kishi.
Yeah, and it does this really well. Like the controllers felt really nice and everything. But that's taking your phone and turning it into that device versus this like device this is what it is. It's nothing other than this handheld gaming experience. So curious to see how successful something like that is. Although we're firmly in this realm right now where the Switch has shown how this form factor works. The Steam Deck is really a lot of people's minds. So it's interesting.
I'd be curious to see price point, and then obviously part of the draw is the catalog of apps, because obviously the Steam Deck, you have to have a Steam account. Switch is like a Nintendo game, so it's interesting to kind of like how like the competition will work both on the form factor and then also the catalog of games. So interesting. Can't wait to see it.
And you've got to assume that this is running Android, right? If it's going to run Android apps, it's got Chrome, as there was the YouTube icon there, the Google Play Store, right? Like, so this is so much like the Switch runs Android. This is also like they're doing a flavor of handheld gaming platform, and it's going to be neat to see what people do with it. Because I'm sure they're going to hack it and like play with it and all that stuff, and figure this stuff out, right? So, pretty cool. Pretty cool. So,
indeed.
Awesome. All right. Well, with that, let's take a break and thank our next sponsor of All About Android, because this episode of All About Android is brought to you by Bitwarden. And Bitwarden is the only open source cross-platform password manager that can be used at home, at work, or on the go, and is trusted by millions. With Bitwarden, you can securely store credentials across personal and business worlds. Every Bitwarden account begins with the creation of a personal vault. With Bitwarden's username generator, you can integrate with 3 popular email forwarding services that also happen to be open source: Simple Login, AnonAddy, and Firefox Relay. That makes adding another layer of security and privacy easier than ever. When using Bitwarden to generate a new username, the option to create an email alias is presented with a subselection for choosing your preferred service. Just enter the API key for your individual account with the chosen service, select the desired options, and once generated, a new alias is instantly registered to your account. Using unique usernames, email addresses, and passwords for every account is a powerful method for increasing internet security and privacy, and adds protection to logins in the face of data breaches and leaks. This feature is available on the Web Vault, desktop app, and browser extensions, with mobile planned for a future release. Bitwarden is a must-need for your business. It's fully customizable and adapts to your business needs. Use Bitwarden Send, a fully encrypted method to transmit sensitive information, whether text or files. Generate unique and secure passwords for every site with enterprise-grade security that's GDPR, CCPA, HIPAA, and SOC2 compliant. Their end-to-end encrypted vault helps mitigate phishing attacks, and Bitwarden has recently added even more enterprise capability by adding SCIM support to make it even easier to provision and manage users. Their Teams organization option is just $3 a month per user. Share private data securely with coworkers, across departments, or the entire company. Enterprises can use Bitwarden's Enterprise Organization Plan for just $5 a month per user. Individuals can use their basic free account forever for an unlimited number of passwords, or upgrade at any time to their premium account for less than $1 a month. Their family organization option gives up to 6 users premium features for only $3.33 a month. And at Twit, we are huge fans of password managers, and Bitwarden is the only open source, cross-platform password manager that can be used at home, on the go, or at work, and is trusted by millions of individuals, teams, and organizations worldwide. Get started with a free trial of Teams or Enterprise Plan, or get started for free across all devices as an individual user at bitwarden.com/twit. That's bitwarden.com/twit. And thanks, Bitwarden, for keeping us safe and secure and just being awesome. Thanks.
Thank you, Bitwarden. You are awesome. And you know who else is awesome? You are. Thank you for being awesome. This note brought to you by All About Android. All right, it's time for some apps. Let's get into it. Sometimes we just have to take a break and tell people they're awesome, you know? It's the truth. Jeez.
Life is short. Tell people that they're awesome.
Yeah, that should be a t-shirt.
It should be.
All right, Wayne, you got the first one.
All right. Well, we already were talking about games, and so this this story is relevant because on August 24th, the Google Play Games app for Windows went into open beta. So we've been checking in with this starting way back in December. And the Google Play Games app for Windows is basically an app that allows users to play mobile games on their Windows boxes, laptops, and tablets. And so now if you are a user in South Korea, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Thailand, or Australia, you may enroll into the open beta, which consists of 50 plus of the most successful mobile titles, including Summoner's War, Cookie Run Kingdom, Last Fortress Underground, and Top War. I am not familiar with any of these games, and kind of looking at the regions where this open beta is available, it's not surprising. Many of the games that I just listed are from Chinese, Korean, and Japanese publishers, and similarly are, very high revenue generating in those regions. So with your Google Play Games app, if you are in the open beta, your game progress will be synced between your PC and mobile devices. Presumably that includes achievements as well, if you're a total achievement hound like myself. And we talked about specs way back before, and they still seem fairly, we'll call them reasonable as they were before. There's some interesting provisos. So if you are in the regions listed above and you want to enroll in the open beta for Google Play Games, you will still need at least Windows 10 box, an SSD, a quote. So on The Verge, it lists an Intel UHD graphics 630 GPU or comparable. On the actual official Google Play Games beta site, it still lists a gaming class GPU. I think we kind of quibbled about this too when it first came out. What does that mean? But according to The Verge, it is it is at least an Intel UHD graphics 630 GPU or above. At least, okay. And here's another difference between the official requirements list an 8-core CPU, but The Verge here lists 4 CPU cores. Still relatively, I know, not out of the ordinary for a, quote, gaming PC. 8 gigabytes of RAM, between 10 gigabytes and 20 gigabytes of storage space. Again, a little bit of discrepancy here. But the weird thing is that it does require a Windows admin account, and for hardware virtualization must be turned on. Actually, the hardware virtualization is less of a weird thing, but the Windows admin account thing does seem weird. And of course, compatible PC devices and things like that. So
Windows
there
admin account, is that needed in order to just install something?
I guess so. Something about the way that the virtualization and loading works. I'm not really either. I just use it as much as I have
it
to.
Might be
so
the
that's virtualization. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that probably is it. But I've never actually ever seen that on a game's required to play this game, this thing. So it does make sense given that, it's playing mobile games on top of PC. And there will be an expansion if you are, in the US like us and you're really, really eager to play your Android games on your Windows box. Not quite sure if that's going to happen yet, but they are planning to expand the open beta as the year goes on. So there you go. And I just think this was interesting, kind of going back to what we were talking about before with the Logitech, where the Logitech is a device which is kind of tapping into this form factor that's really hot right now with the Switch and the Steam Deck. It's just so hot right now. But coming at this from a different tack where it's the same general, it is a very limited catalog right now, but it's the same, platform of games, Android, right? But rather than kind of going to a hardware side of it with, the Logitech device, it's coming from more, okay, you already have a Windows PC. Do you want to run your Android games on it? So I just think it's really interesting, kind of like the two approaches, and to see what do people actually like. This is kind of a new, this all feels very experimental with how can we expand mobile gaming? Yeah. So I don't know, we'll see which one works out. This is not, again, and just to be clear, this Google Play Games app is separate from that whole Amazon App Store for Windows 11, which friend of the show, Will Soderbergh, wrote a very great review on way back when. Totally different, by the way. This is official, kind of Google Play, and it's a restricted catalog of certain games. So for Windows. So this is separate from that Amazon App Store for Windows thing, which we won't talk about no more. But I don't know. I'm kind of curious to see how this all shakes out. And especially it being very, as a US person, biased towards kind of US type things, for this being very specific to kind of the Pacific market. So so there you go. Google Play Games beta open for some of us.
And once again, kind of, harkens back to that first story. It's like that first story, the cross, device capabilities that are kind of being further cemented into Android. it keeps touching the other stories in the rundown today, because I think they're all somewhat related, right? And that's that's where Google is kind of heading as far as wanting all these apps and these games and these experiences to interact through different platforms, not just Android anymore, or not just Android on a phone anymore, really just being able to reach out to a Windows PC and be able to, play a game there, and then be able to pick up your phone when you leave the house and begin playing from where you just left off on the computer inside on the Windows PC, that sort of stuff. So interesting.
Yeah, something actually I neglected to mention earlier in the show, earlier about that story, is that eventually the cross-device API, while it is on basically like phones, tablets, and Chrome right now, the intention is for it to be both kind of swappable with other APIs or other services, but also other platforms, including, conceivably the other folks across the aisle. So I think you're right, Jason, that there is a thread here of maybe Google taking a different tack and just trying to be everywhere. And a use case that they had brought up for that cross-device API was Spotify. And I think Spotify is a good example of a company, regardless of how you feel about their content or business strategy, that has made a point of being in a lot of different places and available in a lot of different places easily. So I think that's a very interesting tack to go, and also not a bad strategy either, since we kind of think of Google ubiquitously for all kinds of crap anyway. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Kind of just creeping up in all our spaces.
Yeah. Creeping up in all our spaces.
Sounds so creepy. I'm sorry.
Creeping up in all our spaces.
No.
That's what you want to get behind. The technology.
Yeah,
is
great.
up in all your spaces.
I'm sorry. I didn't make it sound weird at all. Nope.
Like it. It wouldn't have been weird if you had said creeping up in all our circles. That would have been normal. And that is my attempt at a segue. If you've been missing Google Plus Circles, well, let me tell you, Twitter's got you back. Twitter Circles operate in much the same way as Google Plus Circles. And what were Google Plus Circles? This was a way on Google Plus where you could take a number of contacts and like group them into a particular group. So this would be my family circle. This could be my close friends circle. These could be my acquaintances circle. So that when I'm sharing something, I'm not just blasting it out to the world and everyone can read it, although I could choose to do that. This would allow me to kind of curate who I share certain things with, right? And I feel like Google Plus, that was definitely one thing out of the gate that they were like really, optimistic about, and people were like, "Oh, wow, that gives you so much control." And I feel like, at least in my experience, I didn't use them nearly as much as I think Google envisioned, only because it became more work to decide how do I curate these things and take the time to make sure these circles are made with the right people, and then how do I choose that I'm sharing this with this circle and not that circle and everything. So I didn't use it as much as probably other people did. But Twitter is deciding they want to try and do a little bit of that too. So this is rolling out widely. This is not a test. This is not a drill. Android, iOS, web happening now. 150 users per circle. And then, yes, you can send tweets to a group of users as opposed to all users. No one is notified when they are added or removed from the circle. So there's no shame there. If you decide, I don't want that person in that circle anymore, you can remove them. They're not going to get notified of that. They just won't see what you post to that circle anymore. So did we miss Google Plus Circles? Are we happy that Twitter's now taken the flag and planted it firmly in their camp? What do you think?
I don't know. I will add this, by the way. It's funny that this story comes up because I'm hiring at my day job, and I've been reviewing resumes, and somebody submitted their resume, and on things they know, they listed Google Plus, which I was like, really? I was like, you might want to update your resume.
A little outdated.
A little outdated, yeah. It was like one of those blocks of social networks and things like that, and Google Plus was in the middle, and I was like, wait a minute. But this idea of a nested follow group, basically, or nested target audience, right? So you have, let's say you have 1,000 people that you follow or that follow you, right? But you only want 150, you know what I mean? This idea of this nested group within the universe, it's almost acknowledging that the majority of people that you're you're following or follow you are not valuable. Like it's adding a layer of value to a subset of users, right? Which I find interesting. Especially given the democratization platform that Twitter apparently has been built on, right? Which clearly is going by the wayside. But like, I don't know. It's interesting. And I feel like Circles was interesting, but never really, like you, Jason, I never really harnessed the true power of it, right?
Yeah. I have seen already on Twitter a couple of posts that said, if you see this, you're in my circle. It's
right.
Like, this is so important.
It's almost like Path. Do you remember Path? Wait, do you remember?
Oh yeah,
do you remember Path, Jason?
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, Path was an old social network app that I knew a lot of the people that worked on it, and it was like built on some sociological tenet that any human could only manage up to 100 relationships or whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
And so like it wasn't the matter of like, you know, being followed by 1 million people on Twitter. It was like, no, you're only being followed by people you're actually friends with, right? And so this seems to be similar to that. Let me see if I can find the exact
yeah, it was 100 or 150. I can't remember, but it was right around there.
I think it was 150.
Yeah,
150. 100. Yeah, it said a
Same
friend
with
cap
Circles.
of 150 people.
Same with Circles. So they're operating under the same tenet. Then.
Yep.
Yeah, very, very interesting connection you just made there.
Yeah.
That is really cool. That is, back in those early days when we actually thought social media would be a respectable place for like as not necessarily as a substitute or addition to our normal social relationships, and not a festering cesspool of all kinds of stuff. Wasn't that nice back then? We had all hopes that social media could just be an add-on to our lives.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's been a long time on the internet. I'm really sorry to my
It's
friends.
fair.
That
No,
work
it's
at
okay.
Twitter,
We're all there.
It's
tiring.
I hate that. The whole circle thing. So I have a couple minds about this. So I kind of see the value in that, like, so you have like Facebook groups, right? Where, especially for like local things, like there's like a local adult Denver dance class where a lot of like the local businesses, if you're interested in dance, can kind of have a local place where they can share news. And I think a big trouble with Twitter right now is like noise to signal ratio, which is absolutely horrific. They have communities, which are good ways of grouping people, but again, there's not a lot of really good way for you to kind of filter out. So I kind of can see where Circles kind of fits into this. It's like a little bit tighter than a community. It's selective, but it is kind of weird. And I could totally see how the fact that it's not transparent, because that's one thing that can be said for like Facebook groups and other kind of similar mechanisms, is that it's transparent. You are joining a specific group for some specific purpose, whereas this is just literally like, here are my friends. And so I just feel like either, I don't know, I especially with the way that Twitter is used now, as like this fire hose of doom scrolling and news and chatter and whatever. I don't know if reining in your Twitter feed with Circles either as an input or an output. I don't know. I just feel like it's a little, it's just like a lot. It's like literally like a fire hose, and you've got like a tiny little cork that you're trying to like put into it so that you can kind of like control both the message in and message out. And I don't know. It also kind of feels like a weird catch up. I feel like Twitter is trying to kind of be where different social media networks are at. So like they have their like Instagram stories type thing. They've got their Spaces thing now, and they've got other things that are trying to. They're all doing that. That's, to be fair, they're all doing that. So I don't know. I'm a little skeptical. I probably won't use it, even though as a total Twitter addict, I probably won't use them. I just
can't think of much that I choose to share on Twitter, because I'm not the kind of Twitter user at this point that shares everything about my life. Like, there was a time when I would share pretty much anything. Now, I've really tampered down on how much I share and the things I choose to share. So using Circles, I suppose, would have been useful for me, for older Twitter user me, versus now where I'm like, well, I already just kind of share things that like I don't mind everybody knowing. Yeah. So why would I, I am, but at the same time, I am certain that this feature will be very useful for certain people, right? Who might attract, just in what they do or how they share, might attract a certain subset of users that they don't want following their stuff. And so fine, keep that limited to the group that will be open and friendly to that message. And that sounds very useful. It's just not something that I have a need for, I guess. maybe I will. I don't know.
Well, what's interesting, and as I think about this, is as we use social media, like I'm with you, Jason. I have toned down. Like I don't post nearly as much on Twitter or on Facebook as I used to. I interact probably the most with Instagram, and honestly, I take advantage of the close friends stories filter where I've self-selected a handful of people, which honestly is probably around 100, right? That see photos, of my kids and stuff like that, as opposed to everybody seeing. Like I'm able to. So it's the same concept as circles. So
yeah. Interesting.
Also props to Professor Panda Bear, who mentioned that the 150 is Dunbar's number, which is, quote on Wikipedia, the suggested cognitive limit to the number of people with whom one can maintain stable social relationships. The Dunbar's number. So there you go.
There you go. Thank you for sharing that. That's the name. All right, Ron, I saw this and I thought of you. I don't even know if it's the same thing. If
it's neat though. I love it though. I love the concept. You might have heard me a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about Google Messages, and now Google Contacts appears to be getting categories much like the feature Messages got a few months ago, which I love. In the case of Contacts, it's a series of chips under the search bar for filtering contacts based on any number of parameters, such as phone contacts, email contacts, company, etc., and currently seem to only be in limited testing at the moment. But I like this idea of sorting and filtering your contacts. Here are all my doctors. Here are all my, my phone contacts, email contacts, companies, or whatever it might be. Like, it would be neat to have the ability to adjust those filters based off of the grouping of contacts that you might have or need. It looks like for now it's programmatic, or it'd be phone contacts or email contacts or companies, but it would be nice to be able to define them, like people I don't want to talk to and things like that. Right. Yeah.
Chip circles.
Yes,
exactly.
right.
Chip circles.
Contacts has its own circles. They're They're chips. The Twitter chips. Anyways, I don't even know. That's not even out, right? It's a limited testing, so you might not see that in Google Contacts quite yet, but maybe someday. And wouldn't you know, J.R. Raphael from Android Intelligence has a tip this week that has to do with contacts. I love when there's synergy that just works together like that. So J.R., take it away. Tell us about contact groups.
Hey gang, good to see everyone here. Hey, this week I want to talk contacts. Not the kind in my peepers, mind you, but the kind that hold all sorts of important info about your friends, family, who knows, maybe even your mortal enemies. Google's got a great app for managing contacts. It's called, fittingly enough, Google Contacts. How about that? It comes pre-installed by default on Pixel phones and certain other devices. And look, if you've got a phone where it isn't already in place, it'd be well worth your while to at least think about installing it and trying to move everything over. All bells and whistles aside, Google Contacts makes it really easy to keep all your contact info continuously synced with your Google account. And that way it's available on any device where you sign in, phone, computer, anything else in between. That in turn means you can get to your contacts from the web even, and it means if you move into a new Android phone at some point in the future, maybe one that's made by a different company than the one who made your current phone, well, your contacts will still show up instantly, automatically, without any manual transfers, any meaningful effort on your part. Pretty good stuff, and that's sort of the foundation for today's tip, which is all about how you can use the Google Contacts app on Android to organize people you know into different groups and then interact with them more easily. So the groups in Google Contacts are technically called labels. They work almost exactly like the labels in Gmail. You just create whatever label names you want within the main 3-line menu area of the Contacts app on Android, and then you add whatever people you want into each one. All organizational nerdery aside, the real advantage of having things set up this way is that it makes it really, really easy to fire off emails or group text messages to everyone in any given label at once without having to type out all their names. You just pull up the group you want, the label, in that main Contacts app menu. Then you tap the 3-dot menu icon in the upper right corner, and right there, you'll see 2 unassuming little options. Send email and send message. Those are hands down the fastest ways to cook up a new email, new message thread to any pre-selected group of people on your phone in one fell swoop. Something you can't do in Gmail or in Google Messages without just adding in all the names manually, one by one every single time, weirdly enough. Now that you know, though, you'll never have to waste another second thinking about group conversation creation again. Hey, remember, if you want more time-saving tips like these, come check out my free Android Intelligence newsletter. You'll get 3 things to know and 3 cool new things to try in your inbox every Friday. All sorts of awesome stuff. Just head over to androidintel.net/twit to get in on the action. That's androidintel.net/twit. I'll see you there, and I'll see you right back here next week.
Thank you, JR. I love how that
On topic.
I know,
Perfect.
super on topic.
Yeah.
Very interesting stuff. Excellent shirt, by the way. JR was wearing a classic Twitch shirt. Probably one of my favorite designs that ended up on a shirt was that one, and I didn't even get one for myself. Dang it. JR's got all the good clothes. Anyways, yeah, there it is. See, it's kind of
That's a good one.
matrixy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that screenshot's
cool.
pretty funny.
The face.
That's the first frame. Okay.
Sure.
You don't have to.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you, JR. Love it. Love the tips. Keep them coming. And and up next, we've got some of your feedback that's coming right up. AAA at twit.tv, 347 show AAA, and Ron has the first one.
I do. Longtime viewer and first-time emailer John in Connecticut writes, I was wondering if anyone or the community has any experience with any of these little Bluetooth boxes that I've been seeing. They are like early Chromecasts. They are saturating the market and mostly show up as Kickstarters, but they say they they connect via your Android Auto or CarPlay port, and then your phone auto syncs via Bluetooth. Any solid recommendations? And John, you are in luck, and you obviously don't listen to every episode because you would have heard maybe about a year ago. Was it a year ago now, Jason? It might have been.
Yeah.
I discovered this when AA Wireless came out via Indiegogo, which was a little dongle that plugged into the USB port and utilized it's a combination of Bluetooth and Wi-Fi to connect my phone to the Android Auto application in my car wirelessly. Previously, I would have to plug in via USB cable and keep the phone tethered to the car, but now it just works that way. So AA Wireless was really the first that kind of did it. And then Motorola came out with the MA1, which was a little more like, hey, legitimacy to this product category. Like AA Wireless was this kind of upstart, scrappy group on Indiegogo, and then here's Motorola basically making the same kind of adapter. And then there's also recently a new one called Carsify, which is another wireless Android Auto adapter. So they're out in market. I can attest to this, that I use AA Wireless regularly. It's awesome. It works great. It keeps my phone in my pocket while still able to use the Android Auto and unlock all that great stuff. So I recommend AA Wireless purely because I used it. If you want a more reputable brand, maybe go with the Motorola MA1. I haven't heard anything bad about any of these. So there you go.
There you go. Yeah, and I mean, AA Wireless, like you said, started off Indiegogo. Now I think it's making its way into stores and stuff, so it's becoming even more legit and everything. Not to mention, I mean, the Motorola, of course, has the Motorola brand. So, but yeah, I think three. Well, I don't know anything about Carsify. That just kind of came up in my searches prior, but definitely AA Wireless and MA1 we've heard about a good amount. This Carsify one, again, a Kickstarter, Indiegogo, kind of falls firmly in that category that he's talking
about.
While
we're on this subject, can I ask you guys a question?
Sure.
So if Google or Android Auto was doing its job, why should we need any of these things? Technically,
ooh, if it was doing its job, that's just like dripping.
That's exactly what these devices do: is take care of business that Google isn't taking care of.
Yeah, well, I think fair. But I think what these do, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ron, but I think these are meant for older head units that don't already have the wireless capability built in, because before it was all wired, and then people started coming out with these hacky ways to do it. Although when they were coming out with these products, it was still on Google's roadmap. Google had already said wireless Android Auto connectivity is coming to certain head units, but it hasn't hit all of the older head units. And so this is a way to get some of those older head units wireless as well. So yes, you're right, but they just hadn't offered it yet.
And they
now
never
they do.
offered the hardware either, right? I mean, other than just the head unit, there was never any They're just like, here's our solution, take it.
When you say the hardware, do you mean hardware like this?
Like this, like anything like this to adapt.
Not that I know of.
We supply the app running on your phone, and then we supply a head unit that runs Android Automotive.
You have a head unit in your car, and you have a phone. Plug it in with this wire, and it will stream Android Auto content to your head unit. That's just the way that it used to work. And then they built in wireless. And now they offer that, but some of those older units still don't, and this is how you get it to work. Google never offered something like this. That's kind of interesting. Google of Cast, of Chromecast fame didn't do this on its own,
Yeah.
Maybe they should have, but
what though? Actually, Google never offered a wired solution for anything for Chrome for video signals at some point, and with the phones. You could no longer do it with wires. You had to always do it with wireless. No matter what?
Right. Yeah. That is true. So there you go. There you have it. Hope that's helpful for you, John. I mean, I don't know. I think the recommendation from this show is probably AA wireless, primarily because that's the one that Ron has and has experience with. That's the one we can talk to. We can speak to, at least from experience. So.
And it's 2/3 of our name, so I mean, we got to go with that. Right?
That's true.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
AAA approved AA wireless. So there it is.
Double A wireless. Yeah. All right, Wynn, you got the next one.
Yeah, and this is in the continuing saga of RCS feedback and feelings. It is the story, it is the technology that keeps on giving in terms of user feedback.
Yes.
And this week we get a little bit of RCS feedback from Ronald, who writes, currently using Pixel 5, when traveled overseas, RCS would not work at all, even on Wi-Fi, and always had to set messages to SMS when sending any messages. It's pretty disappointing considering that Google has been bashing Apple for not incorporating the service on iPhones. If they can't even get RCS running properly without any encryption, the future of the service doesn't seem promising. And one cannot disagree with your experience, Ronald. And also, obviously not the first feedback we've gotten with the sentiment. So.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say. Many people kind of fall into this category. And so, yeah, I think that is a big hurdle for Google getting, and of course, no surprise, we haven't really heard any. I don't even know that we heard Apple acknowledge the Google.
They wouldn't. I knew they wouldn't. You can't that was the problem with that campaign. I was talking about with one of my friends is that somebody's like, wow, really bold of Google to do that campaign and get it out there. I'm like, yeah, but it's also kind of thirsty, right? It's kind of, and Apple's response to that is be like, okay, you're right. No, they can't, they can now they have to dig their heels in even harder, which is frustrating, but yeah. So.
Yep. Totally. Thanks for writing in, Ronald. And now it is time for the email of the week. Yes. Richard wrote in to say, I was wondering if any of you know of an Android wearable to get alerts that isn't a watch. I've tried smartwatches before, but never really stuck with it after the initial novelty wore off, reverting back to a traditional watch. But I miss the easy access to notifications without the need to get my phone out. I have found a Fitbit Inspire 2 that has the option of a belt clip, but are there other options that are Android? Am I the only person that needs this functionality? I feel a device like this would open up people to the wearable OS that wouldn't normally be interested because at the moment, all wearables are strap-based. P.S. Can't wait for the Pixel 7 release. Regards. Okay, so yes, the Fitbit Inspire 2 is a wearable, but there is a clip. Actually, there's a number of, so I'm getting ahead of myself. There is a clip that Fitbit sells called the Fitbit Inspire 2 clip. Creative name, I know. But you can get that and then you can clip it to your clothes. So it's a wearable, but you can convert it into a clippable, let's call it. The Xiaomi Mi Band 6 does the same thing. So the Fitbit Inspire, by the way, $99. The Xiaomi Mi Band 6, $50. So less expensive, but you still need to pick up a clip-on accessory, which I couldn't find that Xiaomi sells one specifically, but this is like one of those things that like you go on Amazon or you go on AliExpress and you find tons of clips that are created for these things. So, you're saving, you're spending less money on this option. So you may get what you pay for. You may like it. But all this really reminded me of was the classic 2011 smartphone by HTC called the HTC Rime, which had a charm accessory. And I found an old Android Central video. I'm pretty sure we won't get taken down for playing this. It's from 2011 with Jerry Hildenbrand narrating. And if you just skip forward 30 seconds into that video, which is the link that I have there in the doc, Burke, you'll see that Jerry is showing off the charm accessory for the HTC Rime. Basically, the charm accessory was this little purple cube on a wire that you plugged into your headphone port. There it is. I don't know if that's purple. Well, it actually does look magenta there, but it's kind of purple. I don't know.
Call that crimson.
Yeah, crimson. Burgundy. Yeah, but I feel like the phone is actually not that. Yeah, I feel like the color's off. But anyways, it's this little charm that was meant to be clipped to, I believe they said, your purse or something like that. And when a notification would come in, it would blink. And so that's
I want this now.
That's what my mind went. I was like, well, wait a minute. We had this at one point. I don't know if it was too early for something like that or, yeah, there you go. There's your little flash. It says, oh,
I remember that thing.
I've got a notification.
But you know what, though? They seem to have stopped doing any blinky things with notifications in general. I feel like it's kind of failing right now on phones.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. We've moved away from blinks, and we've.
No, I want them. Or repeat reminders of something like you forgot. There's a phone call or a message you haven't. Yeah,
important message came in that you haven't seen yet. Blink every 5 minutes, and look, oh, I've got something.
But it only does it once now.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it just reminded me of the Rime, the HTC Rime, and its charm accessory.
I remember that charm accessory.
Yeah.
Jeez. Oh, HTC.
I think somewhere in the catacombs of YouTube, I did either. I know I had that, and I know I brought it on All About Android. I can't remember if I did a full review of it or if it was just like, hey, check this out. But
I remember that. I remember you had it. I remember the color. I remember everything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, 11 years ago. And then also, we should also mention, because you, the two of you talked last week about Fitbit announcement, right?
Yeah, they had teased it. They teased it the day of the show for the next day. So August 24th, last Wednesday, there was the Fitbit. They posted on Twitter on last Tuesday. Mark your calendar for 8/24, and we were speculating as to whether or not we were going to get new devices out of it, and if any of them would be running Wear OS, because we've been wondering what's the Google acquisition of Fitbit. When is it going to merge with Android? So,
yeah. So, my understanding is that it does not run. These do not run Wear OS. So, what are the devices? They are the Fitbit Sense 2 and the Versa 4. I don't believe either of them run Wear OS, but they had teased based on Wear, and essentially that was more of like a hybrid. It adds some Google apps, customizable glanceable tiles. Or was this the original Sense? That might be the original Sense. Sorry, I haven't read through this top to bottom, but I do know that there is no Wear OS running 100% on these devices, which is kind of a bummer because I don't know. It seems to make sense, but then I guess how do they differentiate between Fitbit and the Google Watch, or the Pixel Watch rather? That's going to be coming out not too long from now.
That was Fitbit's jam, though. That was what made a Fitbit awesome and differentiated itself, was that it was not that, and it had good battery life, and it was a little limited, but it did what it was supposed to do.
But could it do those things? Would it benefit from doing those things while still running Wear OS? I don't know the answer to that.
It could, but if you got to make the software.
But and then would that impact battery life? Because a lot of these fitness dedicated devices really that's one really key component, is that they actually have better battery life than your average smartwatch, so So anywho, that's just kind of an addendum from the Fitbit announcement. But yeah, Richard, to answer your question, I don't know that we have very many good suggestions other than, you already mentioned the Fitbit Inspire 2. I mentioned the Xiaomi Mi Band 6 with a clip, which is basically kind of the same thing, but a little bit less money. And it's going to be harder to find here in the US because it's Xiaomi. And then I just couldn't help but mention the opportunity of the HTC Rhyme and the Charm, which is not a solution for you, but still cool nonetheless. I think overall we agree. Maybe this is something that needs to have a little bit more attention now. Maybe it's time to go back to it. Go back to that trough. I don't know.
There it is.
But there you go. There you have it. And congratulations, Richard. You are the email of the week. And with that, we have reached the end of this episode of All About Android. Always a lot of fun. And Win, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your perspective on everything. What do you want to leave people with?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter, and I won't. My circle is open, so you can find me at Queen Code Monkey.
You're not going to circle people?
I'm not going to circle people. I'm all in or all out on Twitter. So either I'm on Twitter or I'm not, and it's all good. And you can also find my technical talks that I occasionally do on Android, code and video at randomlytyping.com. And I would also like to shout out Hisa Senpai at Adobe. So apparently one of the Android faithful and longtime AAA listener, Hisa, is a new coworker. And I got a ping on my work Slack after last week's show that, hey, you work at Adobe now. So anyway, hi, meeting the Android faithful at work. So,
yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Anyway, that's really cool, and I just wanted to mention that and say hi, Hisa.
Right on.
Because he mentioned he might listen live, so I gotta shout out my work homie. So
there you go. There you go. Well, Win, thank you so much. It's always fun hanging out with you. And thank you, Ron. Good hanging out with you too. What do you want people to know?
Thank you, Jace. Thank you for coming back. That's for sure.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, we needed you.
Of course.
Value you. You can follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at RonXO. Go check out Scorebit in the Google Play Store. Download the app. Been working on it all week, testing a new version, doing some bug fixes and things like that. But if you're in pinball, check out Scorebit. You'll like what you find, and it's all at scorebit.io. So
right on. Scorebit.io. Excellent. Also, big thanks to J.R. Raphael, AndroidIntel.net, for sending in those tips each and every week. And thanks to Victor behind the scenes for editing the show. Thanks to Burke behind the scenes for pushing buttons and occasionally talking on the show as he did today. And if you want to find me, you can find me at Jason Howell on Twitter. I also will not circle. It's just vast, not emptiness. It's the opposite of emptiness. It's full. The fullness of Twitter gets my tweets. Yeah, it's definitely not a void. And then you can find me on Tech News Weekly this Thursday with Micah Sargent. We haven't scheduled our interviews yet, but we're working hard on it, and we'll have a great show for you in a couple of days. Do not forget twit.tv/clubtwit, our ad-free subscription tier. Every show that we have on this network, including this one with no ads. You also get exclusive Twit Plus podcast feed, tons of extra content there, shows that only exist on Club Twit, like Hands on Windows is just one example, Stacy's Book Club, the Untitled Linux Show. There's also a members-only Discord that you get access to, $7 a month. You could even pay for a full year, $84 per year for that. twit.tv/clubtwit. Hey, believe it or not, I am knee deep in best of work right now. I kind of can't believe it because it's not even September, but I'm working on it. And so I need your help. twit.tv/best of. Go there. Anything throughout the year on any of our shows, submit it there, as much or as little information as you have. You're like, oh, I remember that one episode where Paul Thurrott, blah, 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 whatever it happened to be. Just go there, submit it. Give us as much info. That way we know what we're looking for. I mean, we have ideas, but it's even better when your ideas are in there too, because then it's kind of part of your ownership as well. So twit.tv/best of, and you just really help us out a lot. But that is it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for watching and listening every single week that we do this show. We do it on Tuesday evenings, and you can subscribe by going to twit.tv/AAA. Everything you need to know is there, including full show notes of everything we talk about. We will see you next time. You won't have to wait that long, just 7 more days. All About Android comes to you next week, and we'll see you then. Bye, everybody.
Hey, we should talk Linux. It's the operating system that runs the internet, but your game consoles, cell phones, and maybe even the machine on your desk. But you already knew all that. What you may not know is that Twit now has a show dedicated to it, the Untitled Linux Show. Whether you're a Linux pro, a burgeoning sysadmin, or just curious what the big deal is, you should join us on the Club Twit Discord every Saturday afternoon for news, analysis, and tips to sharpen your Linux skills. And then make sure you subscribe to the Club Twit exclusive Untitled Linux Show. Wait, you're not a Club Twit member yet? Well, go to twit.tv/clubtwit and sign up. Hope to see you there.